Hey babes, I'm Mel.
And I'm Lil.
And we're your hosts of Building Beauty. We're so thrilled to have you here as we air it all out and share our experiences as brow-obsessed artists, thriving entrepreneurs, and women who care a whole lot about making the world a more beautiful place.
In these conversations, we promise to keep it honest, relatable, and jam-packed with juicy insights to help you create the life and career you're dreaming of.
Okay, my babe, we're back, and today we're diving right in.
I'm excited.
This is the moment we're going to share our moments, not together, but separately, of when we really knew that we were destined for, first, the beauty industry, and second, for beauty entrepreneurship.
They go hand in hand, but we definitely have different journeys at first, but I think they're both super unique, so I can't wait to chat about them.
Okay, well, let's do it. I would love to know, was there a defining moment when you knew aesthetics was the path for you, or was it maybe more of a slow, simmering realization?
Well, I always thought I was going to be like the next Jay-Z, so no. Definitely not.
Were you rapping?
No. I just loved music. I wanted to be on the business side of music, and I think everybody in my life was like, this girl's going to go to LA.
Producer vibes.
Yeah, she's never going to come back.
I could see that with those gold hoops, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I just didn't even, I don't know, aesthetics at first didn't even cross my mind. But then when I got in the real world and I had some experience interning in aesthetics just to make some money out of college and really thinking about what I wanted my life to look like down the road when I had kids and I became a wife, and the music industry, maybe not the best hours for me. I'm usually in bed at 8:30 almost every night. So I knew
need both, baby. Grandma life.
Yes, grandma life forever. But it was going to require a totally different lifestyle that just did not align with who I was. So when I really thought about it, and my brow girl at the time, I was like, wait, you get to talk to all these amazing people. You get to make your own schedule. You get to make people feel beautiful in the skin that they're already in. I was just sold. And I've loved aesthetics my whole life. But I definitely don't think it was something I knew straight out the gate that would become my career.
So you were interning in an aesthetics business.
Yes.
And were you like front desk? Were you doing admin? What did that look like?
Really admin. I was kind of just the assistant. I don't know, whatever I needed to do that day, I was willing to do. And it, for at the time, was a nurse practitioner. So more injections and med spa things. But I just remember always, I've been Italian, right? I am Italian, I should say. My brows were always big since I was little. Like, I think I first got my eyebrows waxed when I was 10. And it was kind of like a self-conscious pinpoint for me. But I knew I always valued my eyebrows. My best friend and I in college would drive like 45 minutes to go get our eyebrows done. So for me, that's what I was drawn more to. I wasn't really wanting to go back to nursing school to do injections. Kind of just felt like the path for me. But speaking of path with healthcare, if I am correct, I believe you wanted to be a doctor for the longest time or be in medicine.
I did.
Okay.
Even though I think like wanting to be Jay-Z is pretty freaking cool. I like have never known that about you, and I love you even more now. It makes so much sense.
Found out here.
Yeah, I was definitely more of the slow realization as well. I think it's so cool that you had a real glimpse into the beauty industry. You got to see behind the scenes, even if it was for injectables or different services that you weren't ultimately providing, but to get that front row view to actually say like, oh, I took this thing for a test drive. It's checking a lot of boxes for me. I'm going to go ahead and do that thing. And now I know for sure. Mine was a little bit more backwards, but of course share similarities. So I wanted to be a heart surgeon since I was 6.
Wow.
And I pursued only that goal through my undergrad.
Wow.
And I never once stopped to think about a plan B or anything else because I was just so singularly, like monomaniacally focused on this vision, which I think to do that, you kind of got to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was the moment where I actually paused and was unsure that my whole world just melted down. It was such a huge identity crisis. And, you know, I was 21 at the time, but that's a big thing to go through when you're on one path and you suddenly question it. And so I look back and I'm like, man, the audacity of me to leave my undergrad to just move to Arizona because it was sunny here versus Oregon, which is really gray and rainy. I grew up in Denver, which is where you are now. So, 370 days a year.
Yes.
I was like, if I'm going to do some soul searching, I'm definitely going to do it somewhere sunny. And I did. And there's a lot of beautiful, magical, synchronistic series of events that led me to seeing this woman. I was getting laser hair removal every single month. Because like you, I am not Italian. So we don't know where all this hair comes from. I'm still trying to figure it out.
You have to tame it though.
But these brows grow all the way down. So ladies, if you want these brows, you got to take it all.
Yes.
And then you got to take it all off and go see someone in Scottsdale for laser hair removal. And she will likely be lovely, as my practitioner was. Wow. And I got to see her every, 4 to 6 weeks. And little by little by little, I just fell in love with her. We never saw each other outside of those 17 minutes of her zapping me. But every time I just saw this light in her. I got to hear about how much she loved her client interactions. I got to hear about her lasering herself on her breaks for free. And I was like, that sounds smart.
Yes.
And I got to really just see something in her, that spark, that aliveness, that vitality that I was desperately searching for in myself. And I knew it was in there, and I knew I could do anything. And I was like, I could go be a astronaut because I really want to go to space in this lifetime, or I can go, fill in the blank. And I just had no idea until I did. And so in that moment, I remember leaving my appointment, searching for the nearest laser school, thinking lasers are kind of geeky and cool, and that's totally up my alley. And I just signed up for the program that started weeks later. Right. I think I went and toured the school really quick, and I was like, yep, perfect. You'll take me. I have a pulse.
Same.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I started right away.
Let's go.
And they told me about this aesthetics program. And at the time, I didn't know anything about aesthetics. I had been taught by my mom to always put a moisturizer on. I did not wear sunscreen.
That's about it.
I was baking in a tanning bed, girls. And I just knew I was going to aesthetics. I was going to learn a bunch of stuff, and then I was going to get to the laser program. And I honestly was in school and questioning being there too. Wow. I remember a really vivid moment about 3 to 4 weeks in, and I leave on a break, and I'm standing outside the school, and I'm calling this medical school to see if they might still take me, because I'm questioning if I maybe made the wrong decision. Right. Because I'm saying this with so much love and humility as who I was in that moment. Every part of me was like, I am not going to reach my potential in this industry. I am not, it was so different to go from A to B. And I'm, over here just learning about how to rub people's faces down. And I'm like, what am I doing? Selling myself so short. Yeah. And I, again, was so unsure. And I'm just so glad that the higher part of me knew. It's
you listen to your intuition.
Just see this thing through.
I think people were probably thinking that too. And they're like, wait, not Jay-Z, but now eyebrows? So confused of what was going on. But when you know something is right, you just know something is right. And I think that's the beauty about listening to your intuition, which I know we'll talk about in further episodes.
Totally.
So my question for you is, now that you were getting into the beauty industry and then you entered the beauty industry, did you always know entrepreneurship, was the goal at the end of the road? Or did you just kind of go into the industry blind?
I definitely went in blind, and I had no idea that entrepreneurship was the goal. And it's so funny because I joke that I accidentally started a business and I only claimed that I owned a business that I really called wow, I am a business owner, probably 2.5 years into my career.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And, I'll give you the short and dirty version of it, but I essentially left school. I was actually coaching full time at a CrossFit gym. So I was lifting the weights and drinking the Kool-Aid, and I was all in. And health and fitness and beauty were definitely all parts of my passion, but I did kind of know I wasn't going to be a gym rat forever.
Yeah.
And so I got a job at a wax center, and I fell in love with waxing in school of all the things. It's facials. I now love them, but at the time I was kind of I'm not going to rub people's faces all day again. The lasers, beep, beep, beep. It was kind of boring and monotonous and repetitive, but I loved waxing people.
Satisfaction.
So I was so surprised by that. I couldn't have known. So I got a job at a wax center, and I figured out pretty quickly that I loved waxing. I loved buttering people up and ripping their hair out. But I didn't love that corporate cookie cutter in the white box, wear the scrubs,
sterile.
Yeah. And I just saw all the ways that like I could maybe do things, not necessarily better, but better for me.
Right.
And it was in that moment that, again, a door opened and I had the chance to like rent this room. I say rent, but actually my friend let me have the room for free because I couldn't afford to pay rent. But I just started letting people know, especially at my CrossFit gym where people like are working so hard on their fitness and care so much about their health, and they're often shirtless and buff and sweaty. So they would let me rip their hair out. And that is really how Melt started.
Wow.
And it really just snowballed from there. So I'm like, oops, I started a business. And of course, looking back now, I'm like, duh, Melissa, you were born an entrepreneur. You were like 3 years old cutting up your own clothes and making stuff and selling stuff to kids at school just for like the funsy spirit of it.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I'm like, yeah, I wasn't really meant to.
It makes sense. That is amazing, though. I remember your story so vividly when we met of how you were destined to go to med school, and then it took this beautiful turn, which I think needs to be talked about more, honestly, especially with women. I think your path can change, right? It still can change. I mean, you and I probably are destined to do this pretty much forever, but you can change your mind about things, and you can really, it doesn't have to be what you went to college for.
Really well said. And it reminds me of, in this exact moment, I'm bringing someone onto my team, multiple someones, but someone in particular who I think really shares this with us. And I imagine a lot of people out there can relate to, number one, thinking you were supposed to be doing something different.
Totally.
Number two, having parents who think you should be doing something different. Especially parents who are helping with college and have dreams for their children too, rightfully so. And to maybe leave a really steady, safe corporate thing, or, if I would have gone into the medical field, I would have had for sure job security, and I would have been doing that till I was 158 years old and like always known I had that. Benefits and fill in the blank. And so it's a big leap, but remembering, it's available, and there's a lot of people who have taken that leap first. And
that's pretty amazing. So,
I
love that.
So when did you know, I know we touched a tiny bit on this in the last episode, of you after your internship with someone and you had gone to aesthetic school, but when did you know that moment? You called me shortly thereafter.
I was going to say,
when did you know that you were actually ready to spread your wings and fly, and that you were no longer going to be working within someone else's business, but that it was the right time and the right decision for you to really start your own business? And with that story, with that share, of course, for all the babes who we know are listening out there, who are on that little cusp, wondering if right now is their time to spread their wings and fly and try it out for themselves.
Looking back, I always was a little bit of an entrepreneur myself, and my mom was an entrepreneur, or is an entrepreneur, I should say. So I've been so thankful to see that my whole life. And then, my best friend and I, we had like B&L's spa, dog walking, lemonade stand, everything under the sun. But I don't think when I became a full-blown entrepreneur, I was pushed a little bit, to be honest, where I'm not sure it was maybe the best time. It was just a decision that I think had to have been made at that point in time. But looking back, 6 months after I went into my solo studio, the pandemic hit. So a little rough to start and then have to shut down. Like it was a crazy time. So I think I always knew I had it in myself. I personally actually did know that was the long-term goal. That was the end goal. But I definitely needed that push to get started. And I will say, I don't think there is a perfect time to start your business. I don't think everything is going to be aligned. I don't think you're going to have, this picked out and this money saved and all these things. You definitely can prepare. And I think you can prepare yourself for that season. But sometimes you just got to jump and you will fly.
I love that you actually touched on not feeling ready and feeling like it might have been too soon. And also recognizing that it's always when we don't feel like we're ready. Not always. There are definitely moments of having discernment and saying, okay, I'm not ready yet, but I'm getting ready and preparing. And also there's those really bold, brave moments where it's like, we're never going to be fully ready. No. But is it the right time? And I think it takes a lot of internal discernment. It takes a lot of gut instinct. It takes a lot of intuition. It takes a lot of trust to really, step out of the nest, knowing that we've never flapped our little wings before and we have no idea what's going to come. No. But that is the cycle of life. That is the nature. And to then really see it pay off where you're soaring and you can go anywhere and everywhere. I think that's so beautiful.
I always say it's a good scary. Like when you have that good scary feeling, that's when you jump. When you are like paralyzed, petrified, can't even see 1 foot in front of you, maybe not the time, right? But it definitely was a good scary. And I was so thankful. I had so much support from my friends and family. Like, I think some were like, oh my gosh, like you are going to do it. But I don't think they had any doubts that it would work out.
Totally. I love that.
Okay. So if you could give advice to yourself at the start of your career, what would it be?
2 words just popped in. They're so simple. So simple. And I believe simple can be beautiful and cliches are cliches for a reason. Keep going. Keep going. You don't even need to know where you're going, girl. But just keep going.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh, and of course, like I did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my 35-year-old self sitting here on this couch saying it right now, what I believe is, wow, somehow that whisper, somehow those words are actually traveling back to my 23, 24-year-old self starting my business, taking these leaps or before that, leaving college, all of it. Somewhere my future self, my higher self, the one who knows, really is always dangling the carrot. That's like how I like to kind of picture it, like dangling the carrot, and those little whispers, those little hunches, those little intuitions, they can come from a lot of places, but I do believe that sometimes they just come from us.
I think
and
so
I hear
too.
it. She's like, just keep going, girl. Just keep it going. It's going to be good. And keep going.
It's such a full circle moment because I remember when I moved to Scottsdale and being in aesthetic school and being here and just not really knowing where I was going, what I was going to do. I knew I needed to go back home. I definitely wasn't with Mr. Right at the time. And I feel like you're young and you're just trying to figure all the things out and really what you want to do in your career, right? But if I could go back in that time and then have like this little glimpse to us sitting here on the couch, I mean, oh my gosh, keep going is all I needed to hear because it always does work out in the end. Maybe the journey isn't exactly what you pictured, but it does. It always works out for your greater good.
The little preview glimpse, though, would make it a little easier, though. Yes, let's be honest.
That would be nice sometimes.
You're like, oh, okay, I got to see it actually really does work out. I'm not going to go bankrupt. Yeah. I'm not going to be homeless.
No kidding.
My parents aren't going to leave me.
No, but it's all good. I think it's like what keeps you going, though, too. Like you need, I think, entrepreneurship, the beauty and also the worst part of it some days is you have to have that little fire under you of like, oh, God, like I always say it's a constant roller coaster, but I think there's a little beauty in fire.
Totally. And I would jump on this roller coaster 100% of the time.
Same.
For sure.
Me too.
Yeah. Curious for you, what's the biggest fear you really remember having when you started the business? What was like that thing where even though you knew you were ready, you knew you weren't ready, but like, do you remember a really like a fear, a palpable fear that you had to overcome in order to do it? Maybe it was at the very start of your business. Maybe it was during that time when the doors closed in 2020. Maybe it was sometime shortly thereafter. But do you remember one of your like early fears and how you got through that and overcame it?
Absolutely. It was the rent, like knowing I was going to have to pay rent every single week, whether people came in that door or not.
That's a good one.
It was coming out of my account. And at the time, I was still kind of assisting with the nurse practitioner. A couple days, I'd have the room to do brows, and I still worked at Nordstrom. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I do this and I'm taking the jump, I can't have all those 3 different slices really anymore. Like I need to be all in, and I need to give this a true shot. So I do remember being like, wow, like, am I going to be able to make ends meet now that I'm putting 2 feet in this thing? And what's so funny though is it happens or has happened to me in every phase. So, you know, I felt that way getting into my studio, and then my studio to my storefront. I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna be able to pay this rent? Mm-hmm. And then you just end up doing it. And it's so amazing to look back, being like the biggest things at the time feel so small to me now.
That's such a great answer, because I can so relate to that. And I honestly don't think I would have thought of that if you had asked me.
Yeah.
And now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
That for sure was my biggest fear, was actually signing on the dotted line and knowing that I was accountable for dollars, whether I made them or not. And you're right, at every phase, I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of the thing. It's like, numbers don't lie.
Yep.
And that rent gotta be paid no matter what.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
such a good one.
I will never forget that. And I still do to this day. I'm like, those checks, they add up sometimes.
Those investments, especially, I mean, we're both pretty much self-funded and have really started from the bottom and really built our way up. And we've both taken it so beautifully slow and organic, where we didn't necessarily move into the huge, beautiful storefront on the perfect street on day one. But we were able to take those micro leaps that felt humongous at the time to know when it was right to spend the extra money on rent or to spend the extra money on the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could go into, and we will, a whole different episode on the micro and the macro leaps. But
Touché.
I think you just have to really honor where you're at to start. Mm-hmm. Okay, so something for the listeners. If someone is listening, or someone listening is on the fence about aesthetics or even cosmetology school, what are some signs it might be the right path for them, and what should they do to explore that if they think it's right?
I know we share this, or we've been asked this 8 million times. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people are very curious about the beauty industry, especially now.
Yes.
And I think we've had the pleasure of magnetizing so many people who are on that cusp. Mm-hmm. And I always share the same first bit.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, go tour.
Yes.
At least a few schools. Go just check it out. Go do the orientation. I don't think a lot of people realize that, there are so many beauty schools, whether you're going the aesthetics route, which is more skincare focused. There's definitely some crossover, whereas cosmetology is more hair focused.
Yeah.
But go check out some of these schools, do a tour, feel into what that really looks like.
Yeah,
get the details on the program. Obviously connect with someone in the industry if you haven't already. It might be the girl that you're going land down, spread eagle in front of every month too.
Yeah.
It might be someone that you find on Instagram and send them a loving reach out, and on and on and on there. But find someone who's really doing something similar to what you think you want to be doing, and just maybe prep some questions, and maybe really in a respectful way of asking for their time and their energy. Do a little bit of digging, do a little bit of research. And the way that you did, if you can get a job or an internship, or if you can go shadow for free in a space where you think it's kind of maybe a fit for you, and you could just test drive it a little bit, all of that would be more actually than I did.
I think it's great to see the day to day. I think that's a big difference because school is different. It's its own realm in that time period. But I think seeing someone's day to day operations, what it looks like, their hours, how many people do they see? Someone doing facials all day is definitely going to be something different than someone doing brows all day. Totally. Long, even hair, being on your feet, things like that. I think it's so important just to get yourself in the environment.
Totally. I think it's, again, seeing yourself in the environment and first seeing yourself in school, even though you're right, it does look so different than the industry. Let's say it again. Being in school looks very different than when you finally get into the industry. Yeah. And it's still a requirement. It's still a necessity. And I think what surprised people when I've given that piece of advice is how accessible it actually is. Yeah. When I looked up school here in Scottsdale, which by the way, there are many, a lot of people move here like you did to come to schools here because there are so many top schools. Yeah. But a lot of people don't realize they offer programs that start every single month. So it's not like university, you have to wait a whole year or many semesters to get started and go through a lengthy application process. So if you're ready, you're like, wow, I could start next month. Great. Or you can plan for exactly the month that you're ready for. They also offer weekend programs, night programs. A lot of us had other jobs when we were in school. Yeah. A lot of them offer really great financing. And so I think it's just that ability to see, wait, I could do this.
It's obtainable.
I could do this sooner than I thought. And I really have an ability to make it work. And it's also a pretty low barrier for entry in the sense of you're not committing to going and doing your PhD somewhere. Yes. My program was... Aesthetics in Arizona is 600 hours. It was an extra 150 for laser, which is optional. That equated to about 6 months. So in 6 months, I could go through the whole thing, learn all the modalities, decide what I loved, but I also was willing to get through the whole program and decided that it wasn't for me. I was just going for the full experiment to find out. And so I think people knowing hey, you could still go to beauty school if you're thinking of it, and you don't have to go into being a CPA for the next 58 years of your life just because you went to school for it.
And you don't need all these crazy pre-requirements and, things like that. I do think, and maybe you are a parent or maybe you do have a job that you're not willing to let go of right now. Having those other options is actually a reason I'm such a big cheerleader for any form of tech school. I think it's amazing, all the things that you can do with those different skills.
Totally. Okay, so now we're talking to the babes who have stepped into the beauty industry for any period of time, no matter what their career looks like now. They're working for someone, they're working within a business, maybe within a company. What does it really look like in your experience and with your expertise to go from what we would consider a technician, a service provider, to a solopreneur in the industry? So someone who really is going to work for themselves and start a business of their own.
I think first you really just have to have maybe a soul searching moment or just really think about the long term of being an entrepreneur or going solo, when you will be responsible and you will be held accountable for so many different hats that you are not required to be responsible for when you are a technician. So I would ask yourself, do I want to deal with customer service? Do I want to deal with maybe some of those nitty gritty things? Do I want to have to deal with the finances and inventory and supplies and really just keeping track of all these things that I think it can be really easy to see when you come into the business. You're not realizing all the little parts that it takes to have the business run. And I maybe would have thought about that a little bit longer because I was at a point in my life where it was just so easy and nice to show up to work and just see my clients all day, do brows, and then get to go home and not worry about anything.
Leave it at the door.
Leave it at the door. But when you step into your entrepreneurship, you have to respond to people even if you're on vacation or even when you're sick, things like that you just don't necessarily think about when you are only thinking about being a technician. So I would just ask, am I ready to go to that next step? Do I want more responsibility? Am I willing to take on more? And if the answer was yes, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur, then I would write a list of things down. Okay, what are things that I'm going to need? What are costs that I'm going to have? Who could help me make my website? Or am I going to be, as we talked about before, a jack of all trades and, make a logo yourself? And where will I be? How much is that rent going to be? And how much will my on the day-to-day supplies be? And really think about the bigger picture. I'm all for people jumping in and wanting to make their dreams come true. I actually think our generation and the generation younger than us right now is doing an amazing job of just like going for it. But I do think there is thought, or there needs to be thought going into that process beforehand. And I myself, I can admit that I wish I would have thought about that a little bit longer.
So well said. Yeah. And probably it means a lot to me. I would imagine it means a lot to people to be like, wow, thanks for admitting where like, wow, I wish I would have, not that it would have changed your decision, right, but to know now what you didn't know then. And touching on everything you shared is like, there's a real tactical, practical component of being a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, where there is the day-to-day, the week-to-week, the month-to-month, the quarterly, over and over. There's all of these bits that we not only get to do with all those extra hats, we learn a lot of those hats, especially in our early days that we've spoken to. And so it's not only am I willing, but am I able to really be intrinsically motivated enough to go learn all of these other things. I've learned how to be a great brow artist. Right. I've learned how to be a great, experience creator with the one-to-one, the service provider to client ratio. And I'm probably a really amazing employee or coworker or teammate. But am I also willing to go and become a beginner at so many new things? Neither of us came from full-blown business backgrounds. No. I did not know about a standard operating procedure. I did not know about QuickBooks and payroll and fill in the blank, all the things. Absolutely. So there's a tactical, practical side that you really touched on. And then there's also this emotional, spiritual component where it's like, are you really fully ready to be married to this vision? Are you really ready to think of your business, your craft, like a baby you are birthing into the world that you now are fully responsible for in all of its stages and phases? And so, when that baby's born, I'm a first-time mom to be. So this is my metaphor. I don't know this firsthand quite yet. I think I'm going to find out. And I'm grateful for my entrepreneurial journey because I'm like, wow, I remember what it was like to be a new mom, having no idea how to keep this thing alive. Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, finding the feet under and taking the first steps, and then running, and then sprinting, and then. And so our business is so much that way too. And like really knowing, are you up for that? And are you stoked for that? Yes. And are you in it for the long haul? And I'll just touch on one thing that I think is really important here.
Yes, leave the listeners.
My number one piece of advice for that beautiful moment when you're ready to spread your wings, that moment when you're ready to go from technician to solopreneur, you're ready to sign on the dotted line on your salon suite down the street. To do it with the utmost respect and professionalism. Yes. And to make sure that no matter what the dynamic of the place you are leaving, the people, the managers, the owners, that at the end of the day, you can put your head on your pillow and know that you have integrity and you did the right thing. Absolutely. That to me in our industry is sadly so lacking, and it's so paramount. And I always share that it doesn't matter how long you were somewhere, it doesn't matter what relationship you had, the very end, the way you leave is the number one thing that matters. So that would be my last little sprinkle for these babes listening.
I love that. They always say your last, you usually put in your 2 weeks, and they say those last 2 weeks matter more, usually more than your career that you had at that job. And I know in my younger self, when my life was a lot more chaotic, I definitely could have I could have used that advice when I was younger, because the world really is so small. And you also never know when you might need that resource again, or just like a shoulder to maybe want some mentorship or advice from. I think you can still have a beautiful relationship.
Okay, well, speaking of beautiful endings, this feels like a perfect place to stop this episode. But before we go, just an easy share and shout out to anyone who's listening who feels connected. Maybe you are the person who's considering getting into the beauty industry. Maybe you are the person who is ready to spread her wings and start your own thing and birth your own baby into the world. And if you are either of those people, just know we really are here. We really are your beauty besties. Yes. And we have lots of good info of how you can get in touch with us. And we want to really support you in these phases that we know are challenging. They're hard, but they're scary, beautiful. And we're so here for you. Yes. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Remember, wherever you are today is exactly where you're meant to be.
We're proud of you, we see you, and we're always cheering you on. Until next time, babes.